My name is Jared Meyer, and I'm joining you from the Denver office of NinjaTrader. We have a very special event for you today. We have Mr. Chris Knox of ZoneTraderPro. I just want to remind everyone that it is important to understand that there are substantial risks in trading commodities futures contracts and Forex. You should carefully consider whether such trading is suitable for you, and that will depend on your specific circumstances as well as your financial resources. It is possible to lose all the funds deposited with your broker. You could even incur losses beyond these amounts. I'll post a link here in just a moment, but please inquire at ninjatraderecosystem.com/risk disclosure for more information, or if you'd like a copy of the CFTC full risk disclosure. Also, please remember that these training webinars are not a solicitation or recommendation, but simply educational in nature. This presentation is presented by NinjaTrader LLC, which is a technology company responsible for developing and supporting NinjaTrader trading software. Brokerage-related questions should be directed to NinjaTrader Brokerage directly. Their phone number is 312-262-1289. Email address is brokeragesales@ninjatrader.com. We are very excited for this unique event in which Chris Knox of ZoneTraderPro demonstrates finding hidden patterns in the order flow and using patterns to determine market direction. Thanks again for your attendance today. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome to the NinjaTrader webinar room, Chris Knox. Please take it away, Chris.
Hi, thank you, Jared. And thank you, everybody, for attending this short webinar today. And just a big thanks to NinjaTrader for not only hosting this, but creating the volumetric bars, which basically I was able to go and create my indicators from. And without NinjaTrader doing that, none of this would have been possible. So I just really want to thank NinjaTrader for really advancing their software a lot with this edition. A little bit about me. I established ZoneTraderPro back in 2007. And I did it for my personal trading, and the basic reason that I did that is I'd probably spent about $30,000 buying other people's software, going to seminars where things worked, great on a weekend, and then when you put something on a chart on Monday, signals would disappear, redraw, and kind of got tired of that. I initially dedicated ZoneTraderPro to finding repetitive pricing patterns, but when it was first created, I didn't really have a set of filters to explain why a trade fails, why it goes further, and I just had to rely on what was available at the time, and that was the very basics of order flow, where you just saw numbers. In 2017, I began the development of pattern matching using the order flow, and that is really what has created the current ZoneTraderPro order flow suite of tools that I have now. Basically, what we're going to look at in this webinar is we're going to look for hidden patterns that form in the order flow, which are going to telegraph where we're going to be going with price direction, reversals. We want to see what we can learn from the market orders. We want to understand what the patterns that can form in an order flow bar. Does the order flow give us any significant clues that we can understand if we're in a trade, planning to enter a trade, or exiting a trade? We want to look at why historical orders are important, and we also want to identify, I want to show you how to identify a high-risk trade and try to avoid that for taking a lower risk trade. And then we want to look at what the tools are that ZoneTraderPro offers, and that will help you understand this order flow and the volume that it creates. The ZoneTraderPro software is basically two indicator suites now. The original pricing patterns indicator, which I'm not going to talk a lot about in this webinar, and in that pricing patterns indicator, there are basically four trades. It's the exhaustion trade, the tick divergence trade, a reversal, and a trend trade. But what this webinar is about is going to be the order flow pattern matching. And basically for that, I have a series of patterns. The first being the point of control absorption, the point of control extension. I have extension zones, stopping and continuation ratios. The software identifies trap traders, and the exclusive ZTP order flow signal. Now, what is really important is what we can learn from an order flow bar. And when order flow was first created, probably over 15 years ago, this is basically all we had. We had a set of numbers that went back and forth. And basically what I tried to do back then is if I saw market orders going in one direction or another, I tried to go in that direction. However, after a few $1,000s, I pretty much figured out that that was a useless kind of strategy. And the problem becomes now, how do you identify patterns, or how do you identify what is useful and what is not useful in an order flow bar? So here I have 3 order flow bars, and only one of them really tells us anything. So, as we're looking at these bars, we can see a lot of market orders flowing in one side. Both to the buy side, to the sell side, and we don't really know where the pattern is, and that's really the main reason for the software. If you saw something in the bar that was in the middle, you were correct. And ZoneTraderPro identified a lot of information in that bar. Basically, what we're looking at here is it identified 4 different signals. The first being the point of control absorption. It identified trap buyers. It gave the ZTP order flow cell, and it also identified a stopping ratio. Also, what you see in front of you is the black dot right here, and the black dot encompasses two different things I'm trying to display with that. And the first is that there was extremely high volume in the black dot where the -877 bubble is. The point of control is also noted here, and that's at the top of the bar. That's extremely important when you have a down bar and the point of control is at the top, because what you're going to see is all of these traders, the 4,000, 5,000 contracts that traded here, these people are now all on the wrong side as the market trades away from them. We already talked about the stopping ratio and the trap buyers. That's obviously what the algorithm is picking up. We also see that up here, the algorithm identified the absorption of buyers in each of these top 3 price levels, and that absorption is identified by the red box that you see around the price level. And down here where the 2013 is, what that means is that from bar to bar, the delta changed, and in this case, by the fact that it's a green and a positive number, the delta actually changed by 2013 as this bar created and formed. And that in itself is very interesting, because that's a significant divergence where you have 2,000 contracts on the delta that are now the wrong side as it's been traded away. The -877 by itself, that number is what I call the delta strength number, and it is not the delta itself. It is a proprietary algorithm that displays the strength within the bar. So just so you understand, it is just not the delta. One of the other things that I do is I create extension and absorption zones. And extensions occur when extreme market orders move price in the direction of those market orders. And absorption, like we just saw in the previous slide, occurs when price moves opposite of those extreme market orders. And here we have, this is the chart of what we see right here. This is the order flow chart that ZoneTraderPro painted for this. And it's pretty much what we would expect to see. What we have here is we have either an accumulation or a distribution. And basically what we see here is pretty much what we would expect to see as the market trades back in this very tight range. And I basically liken that to trading on or the zones going back and forth, green to red, looking somewhat like a Christmas tree. We basically see this fight between the bulls and the bears, and we understand that once the price breaks out, there's going to be a lot of traders that are going to be on the wrong side. And we do have a few clues on this chart, but not really a lot. Basically what I consider the kind of clues is up here we correctly identified the tick divergence pattern along with a ZTP order flow sell signal, and the black dots again represent that we had some high volume there, but not really much else. However, when we go and add in the extension and absorption zones, we now have a clear picture, and what we can see is how numerous times as price traded to the top of this range, the sellers came in with strong market orders here to drive the price back down. And what is interesting is that didn't happen down here to the buy side. Before the price breaks down and trades down, what we did is we created not one, but we created 4 different POC extension sell signals along the way here. And I thought that was very important when looking at this and trying to show you something, because these are the market orders coming in. They're coming in after the market was allowed to get back up to the top of this range. And really we don't see the opposite thing occurring down here on the buy side. And here's basically the conclusion to this trade. We don't start creating POC extension buys until we're almost 10 points into it. Part of the ZoneTraderPro theory that I teach my customers is at this point, and as we're trading down here, this is something that I'm going to consider to be high risk. And basically the reason for that is as price is probing down, trying to find its support, that is basically a good area that if we were in a trade that we want to get out of, but not necessarily where we want to kick off a trade. Just because we have a signal down here and again down here doesn't necessarily mean in and of itself that that is something that we want to take. However, it's an excellent reason that if we were in this trade, we now want to consider getting out of it. Next, at the bottom down here, what is going to turn out to be the ultimate bottom, we see that we have very strong delta strength numbers down here, along with a very strong delta change number, this 3660 and this 1425, which is really signaling that the buyers are coming back into this market and driving this up. Here again, we see a fight between the buyers and the sellers, somewhat like we did going into this trade. Again, not necessarily buy or sell signals that we're going to be acting upon. That's going to depend on any kind of strategy that you're going to have and create. But when we reach up here at the price of 28.08, we again see a tick divergence pattern along with the combination of the POC extension and absorption. And this is again defined as something predefined in my theory. This is predefined as something that's high risk. Then what we see is a sell-off, and the sell-off comes back to this area on the charts right here. And it's really hard to see on this chart, but there is a minor support zone that ZoneTraderPro creates right here. And again, if we're going to take a trade from here, this is not going to be something I would generally recommend, because this is an area where it's not necessarily high risk, but it's low reward. What we see up here is the market trades back up, tests the high, and we have a combination of a POC extension and absorption trade, and we can see the results from that right there. James asks a question, how you can have order flow on a Forex where there is no exchange. James, I have never looked at this on a Forex, so I just can't answer the question. Just don't have that information available. But in this chart, the other thing that is very important is we see the creation of the extension zones first here, then here, and this is kind of what we would expect. And again, we see the creation of the extension zones at our trading signal where we want to eventually get short at. And down here, we don't see that. We see an absorption, we see the ZTP order flow, but we're not seeing extension zones created by the market players. And again, that is very important to me. Generally, when you, as you see on this move up, we created some extension zones right there. We created an extension zone right here back to the buy side, and then back to the sell side. This this is not a the extension zones by themselves, however. This isn't a stop and reverse kind of thing. If you wanted to create some kind of strategy that does that, of course, this is something that can be tested. And I just really want to emphasize that, because not all the signals here are trading opportunities. My real goal in what I try to give my customers is a half a dozen low-risk trading opportunities per day. And it's just not meant to be a stop and reverse system on every trading signal. And what you see right here and what you saw on the previous screen are two examples of that, where within a very short period of time, we have two excellent signals that result in two excellent trades. Here we have basically what I'm trying to illustrate here is the POC and extension zones. When they are created with a point of control that is on a down bar, high in the bar, that's what creates our POC extension and absorption here, our POC absorption here, and down here where we have the POC absorption and extension. Probably the two strongest signals that I have are when there is the POC absorption and extension occurring on the same bar as it happens right here. Because what is happening is there are certain people out there that are accumulating as many contracts as can be given to them down here, and that's what absorption is. And then at the same time, there's people forcing the market as the market reverses out of here, and that's to me that's a very important move. The second most important signal or combination of signals is when I have the POC extension along with my ZTP order flow signal. Basically here, what one of the two patterns, this is basically again illustrating those when these two patterns occur together, the extension and the absorption down here. Down here on the bottom, we have the POC absorption along with the order flow followed by an extension. Up here, here we have the POC extension and the ZTP order flow on the same bar. And these are generally the things that we like to see, especially when they're occurring at a known trend zone, which is the pricing pattern. So this is basically the things that we're going to be looking for. The ZTP order flow signal is an exclusive signal to ZoneTraderPro. What it does an excellent job at calling tops and the bottoms, and I use it as an indicator when I'm looking to enter a trade or get out of one. Where you see these black circled dots, that again is the delta strength indicator, and the delta strength is not the delta of the bar, it's something that is completely different. We already talked about the smaller numbers that you see up here, that's the delta change, and as you can see on this chart, when you have an up bar where there's a negative delta change right here, basically what that is telling you right here is that the buying was drying up and to kind of expect a reversal. We see the same thing happening down here, but this in and of itself, this isn't a timing indicator. Just because the delta changes doesn't mean that it's going to be changing on this bar or this bar. And it's not something that I personally use to be entering a trade or exiting a trade. It does become important if I am in a trade and I'm worried about whether or not I need to exit or not. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to illustrate what we see on this chart and basically go over it move by move. So basically what we started out with is we started out with a market in a strong bullish trend. And again, that's defined as the in the market in the ZoneTraderPro pricing theory. And if we did take a trade from here, again, this is something that I'm going to define as high risk. Price had been probing higher, and we'd created a strong trend and reversed exactly at this pink line here, which is the ZoneTraderPro strong trend resistance line. At the top, you can see there is good numbers here as far as the delta change and the delta strength. But because I'm going to basically expect just a small retracement and then a test of the high, this is not something that I want to get involved with. Basically what's happening here is the late buyers are going to be the ones that are going to be coming in here, because after the market has moved 4 or 5 points up, they finally get the courage to start buying as it's down here. And that's basically the wrong. That's the wrong answer. They're late to the show, and most people, they're going to call these the retail buyers, and they're going to get their money taken from them. We see up here that at the test of the high, we have a good delta strength number. This 398 is a good number. And we also see that the delta itself has changed by almost 1,100 contracts. So when the ZTP order flow signal comes in right here, that's an excellent entry for a trade that I would be looking to take. Next, what we're going to see on this chart right down here is we're going to see a ZTP order flow, and that is basically, again, what's expected because we've traded down here to what I call the blue counter trend zone. And approximately 50% of the time, the price trades down to this blue zone but doesn't trade through it. And that's an important number to know if you're developing a strategy, because exactly as what happens here, we see a 6 or 7 tick retracement back to this ZoneTraderPro trend trade. At the ZoneTraderPro trend trade, we see high volume and we see a very strong delta strength number indicating heavy selling, followed by another 2 bars that were also high volume. And this gets to a point that I made in the beginning of the webinar, and that is when I first created ZoneTraderPro, I didn't understand why trade would enter, or why the market would enter a strong trend. And with these numbers, the high volume and the high delta strength, these are basically those numbers telling me that. So if I am in a trade from back here, I've maybe added to it here, and I see these numbers coming out on high volume and high strength, this is a time where I might want to consider moving my target from here at my blue zone and moving it down to the next target zone down here at 2803 and trying to get a couple extra points out of this. And then down here at the bottom, again, we see a ZTP order flow a buy signal. And like I talked about before, this is not a signal where we necessarily want to be entering a trade. That is high risk down there, but it is an excellent signal if it's occurring down here to be getting out of that trade. Ken asks, or Ken says that the chart is kind of busy and can it be cleaned up, and so not to have so many circles and extension lines. And the answer is absolutely sure. You can choose not to display information. However, most of this information that I'm looking at, I consider to be need to know type of information. Anthony, I'll get you the number at the end of the webinar. ZTP just stands for, and Charles, ZTP just stands for ZoneTraderPro. So here we have basically the conclusion of these patterns. At the low, the ZTP order flow signal is given, and it's given on high volume, which is basically a clue that if you were still long, or I'm sorry, if you still were short, that we are going to want to try and be getting out of this. We see significant buy numbers taking the price to a trend trade, followed by a ZTP order flow, and a second on the test of the low, we see the ZTP order flow buy there. Basically, the ZTP order flow volume and delta strength, those are created at high volume, and up here, again, this is why I talk about something being high risk. This POC extension and absorption is created here, and this is something that I would consider low risk. This actual trade, though, I didn't get the ZTP order flow signal that I would like, but this in and of itself I consider a strong signal. And that signal is being given on high volume too. The absorption and a very low delta strength number down here kind of gives me an indication that this is going to go further. We have, again, strong delta strength here, and And again, basically, when we see these high numbers going into the blue zone, this is what's giving me information about the fact that I probably want to move my target. The market traded down even from here another couple of points. I'm going to pass on this slide because we're getting a little long and there might be some questions. Basically, though, I want to go over a quick little idea that I had when I was creating this, and I want to go over this real quickly. What I'm going to go over, this isn't a trading strategy in and of itself. There's more work that's needed. But basically what I'm doing is I'm using the extension zones and I'm using high volume to create this trading idea. And obviously you're never going to be able to get a trade exactly at where an extension zone is created. I realize that, so put that out there. During the week I created this idea, there were 41 documented trades. 3% of these, or 7%, were clear losers. And basically it broke down to 19 trades went for 4 points or greater, and another 19 went from either break even to 4 points. And basically what I'm doing is I'm just taking this each day and I'm looking at where I've created my signals with the extension zones on high volumes and just going from extension zone to extension zone. And as you can see, some days are busier than others. Some days there's more trades. But generally there's always several trades that are going to get you that 4 points in just one move. Here's Thursday, a pretty busy day. Here's one of the significant losses right there. Here's one of the other losses right there on Friday. But all in all, a fairly decent strategy. This is another strategy where I use the ZoneTraderPro point of control extension signal. I use it on a 4-range chart. And when I get this signal down here, especially on high volume, what I'm generally looking for is 4 points out of that trade. And here basically we see this in action, point to point to point to point. Again, same thing. Down here we have the ZTP order flow with the absorption, the extensions on high volume, the extension on high volume, the extension on high volume, and so on. One of the last strategies that I personally trade is if I have a signal but a POC doesn't develop on it, I'm going to enter the trade based on this ZTP order flow and basically look to get 2 points out of it. This is used on a smaller time frame and it's used when POCs don't develop. Again, here's another couple examples of that. And here's a couple examples of what happens when we enter on that type of entry, but a POC extension develops after we've gotten into it. So basically I try to be a little bit flexible with my target, and I'm just going to let the chart tell me what to do. Same thing right here. Here, same thing. We entered here. We see super strong delta strength numbers, and the ZTP order flow again marks the top at the apex of the trade. And basically what, in this short period of time I have with you, I'll kind of give you the idea of why, ZoneTraderPro suite here is, basically a great set of tools. We're going to identify and we're going to intuitively place this information concerning volume and the strength and the patterns themselves right in front of you, right on the chart. You're not going to try to be reading numbers down in a basement. I hate that. You're never going to see that. Your eyes are always going to be focused in on the chart that's in front of you. Here's basically a competitor's chart. Not really important who that is, but exactly the same. This is exactly the same chart that you see right here with ZoneTraderPro identifying these up moves, these down moves, and I'm marking them on the chart right here. And basically all this chart is offering us is the order flow numbers themselves. It's not really helping us any. Same thing with this other software program. Yeah, they told us there was some support in there, but did they tell us we had extension zones there and there? No, they didn't. Basically, this brings us down to, you know, what we can conclude from this, and I'll open it up to any other questions here after this. Market orders are moving the order, and they can be classified into these identifiable patterns. But what you need to know is you need to know if there are exhaustion or extensions forcing the market. There are patterns forming on almost all market reversals that ZoneTraderPro does a great job of identifying. The historical orders, those come in, are very important, and I didn't really talk about those a lot. But when an extension zone projects in the future, that in and of itself is not a reason to trade. But when additional extension zones are created at that price, what we basically are seeing is we're seeing whoever had previously put in those market orders, we're looking at them defending those prices at that same price level. So that's when historical orders become important. Only ZoneTraderPro teaches you basically how you're going to avoid a high-risk trading situation, and we do that with the ZoneTraderPro pricing patterns, and we use those in conjunction. One complements the other. The ZoneTraderPro order flow suite just makes it easier to understand this order flow, makes it to understand when we have high volume and low volume, and these patterns, they develop rapidly, and we see them in the order flow. Some of the questions, the other questions was, I generally use this on any futures chart, and I've started to do some work on both oil and gold futures that have significant moves in them, sometimes 20, 30, 40, 50 ticks at a time. Once these extension zones and these POC extension signals are created. If you go to my website, you'll see I've started creating videos illustrating this, and the gold and oil markets are also tradable using this set of tools. Never used it on stocks, and I've never used it on Forex. And you know, to conclude, basically, when you have all this information in front of you, this is how you're effectively going to understand what the order flow was and have the pricing patterns. When I first created this, or created the ideas and sent my ideas off to the programmer, it was very hard for me because I tried to do this in real time. I tried to understand these patterns in real time without the help of software, and it's just really not possible to be doing that. My website, of course, is www.zonetraderpro.com, and the phone number is area code 954-380-4854 if you want to go ahead and get in contact with me. Basically, I'm offering the for the next 48 hours, the price of the software normally is $2,695, and I'm offering a $250 discount on the order flow or on the entire indicator suite. One of the other things I'd like to mention this time too is when we went to NinjaTrader 8 and I created this entirely new indicator suite, I didn't charge my customers one single penny to upgrade, and get the new software. That again is something that I don't believe in, where I have personally seen vendors charge for new stuff, or just because they're going from one platform to another. And all of my clients, they received the order flow suite and the NinjaTrader 8 suite for free. Robert, I don't understand you. Robert wrote a question. Is this TS? What is TS? Not really sure what that is. Time and sales. No, it's not time and sales. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm looking at the entire bar itself, and basically how the order flows within that bar. So I'm not looking at the time and sales per se. It's just the bar itself. Then Kat asked a question about a monthly subscription, and I don't do a monthly subscription, and that's because basically what I do is I offer unlimited support for the software. And basically what unlimited personal support means to me and to you is that you can get a hold of me anytime, and if you need 2 hours to go over something, you basically have it. I put in a lot of time generally to get a client to the point where they are successfully executing a strategy. And basically, if I did a monthly subscription and somebody didn't follow instructions, which has happened before, they didn't create a strategy, it's a lot of time on my side to get there. So for that reason, no, I don't do a monthly. I put a lot of time into getting people ready to trade, and that's basically what I do. Stephen asks if you can see the program work in real time, and the question is absolutely. Just give me a call and we can set that up. Like I said before, though, nothing has changed in nothing changes when we have a completed bar. If we have a current bar, if we're in real time and price is trading up and down, then yeah, we can see a pattern develop to one side and then disappear as price trades away from it. So a current bar is not something that's permanent. Once that bar is closed, then it's permanent, and that's never going to change. And that's not going to change if we see it in real time or we take a look at something that happened 6 months ago. Al asked if I recommend a certain time length, and I actually do. Basically, when I'm trading, I look at 3 different charts, and I'm looking at 3 different charts for 2 different reasons. I'm looking at a higher time frame chart for the POC signals and the extension zones, and I'm looking at a smaller time frame chart for the entries. So this is something that is kind of personal to me, but it's obviously something that can be taken and played with by the user to see what they like, and you don't have to you don't have to completely reinvent my wheel. If you like my wheel, you can go ahead and use it. But you definitely can try something different. James asks if this works for stocks. I honestly don't know, James, because I've never tried it on stocks. I've only done it on the futures. I've done it on the Euro futures, the gold, the oil, and obviously the NASDAQ and the ES. And it works for all that. Basically, when we have volume, we're going to see that. But what I would suggest you do, James, is to give me a call, and I can definitely pull up whatever stock charts you're interested in, and we can go and apply the principles of what the order flow is going to look at. Steve asks if this is going to work on a Renko chart. Again, I don't know if it would work on a Renko chart because what we have to use is we have to use the NinjaTrader volumetric bar type. And if we're using the volumetric bar type, I don't know if that can actually print out it in Renko fashion. But that doesn't preclude you, obviously, if you like to see a Renko there, from opening up another chart and having the Renko there while you're looking at the pricing patterns and the order flow on the volumetric bars. Any other questions? Doesn't look like we have any questions. Again, like I said, if you'd like to, anybody that is here that would like to see this in on anything specific, feel free to give me a call. I'm basically here, I trade myself, but I realize that after doing this webinar, there's going to be some interest. And we'll go ahead and pull up what you're interested in and see if it works for you. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But if what you see here does work for you, then like I said, nothing's going to change if we look at this on a Sunday evening or Monday at 10 o'clock. Then Kat asks if there's audio alerts, and yes, there are. And I am refining those audio alerts to make them better right now, and so that they only go off a very minimum amount of time. Erwin asks if there's an auto trader to this, and Erwin, the answer is no, and basically the reason behind that is the amount of effort that goes into an auto trader is telling it when you want to get into a trade. And telling it when you want to get into a trade is a very expensive proposition to put into your software. But what I would prefer is that the trades be made manually, because that way we avoid high risk trades. The auto trader would have to be taught how you go and would have to be taught how you avoid a high-risk trade, and that's where creating an auto trader becomes expensive. And McNinn, yeah, there will be a recording of this. It'll be up on my website. It'll also be up on my YouTube channel, and it will be on NinjaTrader's website also. Any other questions? Thank you, Al. I just want to thank Jared and NinjaTrader one more time, because they did a tremendous job when they created the volumetric bars, and it just gave developers like myself an opportunity to classify what's going on. Then Kat asks if you can use an ATM strategy, and absolutely, Venkat, that's basically how I am controlling my trades. Basically, what you're going to see in real time is you're going to see a pattern develop on a higher time frame bar. And what I do is I like to see the pattern develop on a higher time frame bar, and even though the bar is not complete, if I have an entry in the smaller time frame bar which is complete, then I enter using an ATM strategy to control the trade, and let that develop from there. And I've actually done some research for myself that I pass on to my clients about how risky that is to do. Again, way beyond the scope of this webinar. But yeah, I do enter and use a ATM strategy to control the trade.
All right, looks like there aren't any more questions, so I'm going to go ahead and close this out. Just want to give a special thank you to Chris Knox of ZoneTraderPro for his great presentation today. Just a reminder that everyone in attendance here today will receive an on-demand recording of today's event. So please keep an eye out for that email. I believe it should get to you around Monday. Some other just final housekeeping information. NinjaTrader ecosystem is pleased to sponsor these weekly vendor events as a value-added service for our clients. If you find value in these events, we hope that hope that you will attend them on a regular basis. We just want to remind everyone that the information provided in today's event was that of ZoneTraderPro and not of NinjaTraders. All information was for educational purposes and should not be construed as trading advice. Again, we appreciate the time you spent with us today. Please enjoy the rest of your day. We hope to see you again in future webinars. Happy trading from all of us here at the NinjaTrader ecosystem.